A very warm welcome to you, and we're going to start with this, and it's an important issue. Transformation in the local advertising industry has been notoriously slow. I think that's a fair comment, with an official transformation charter only being signed in 2005. Well, what's happened since then? Well, we've seen some positive changes, but do agencies really get the new South African consumer? Here's a bit of background. During the apartheid era, the majority of consumers with so-called disposable income, I guess, were white. Today, with the steady rise of a black middle class, are we really creating advertising that connects with the consumer, or are we merely blackwashing, as it's termed, old white concepts? Thabang Squambani is with us, MD of the FCB Johannesburg agency. Joey Kavutlu, MD of Hello Computer Johannesburg, are both with me to weigh in. Joey, I'm going to start with you, and a very warm welcome. Help me with a definition. Blackwashing.
Blackwashing essentially refers to, as you've mentioned, taking concepts that we've seen before and perhaps adding elements that we think are black to make it seem like the concepts or the things that we're putting out there are now supposed to be actually engaging with the broader market. So you add a few people of color, you add music that we think that is relevant to black people, and we think that the original concept that we started off with is now resonating with the people that you're trying to talk to.
Philosophically, are you suggesting that the concept in the first place is wrong, and that's where the disconnect is with the new black consumer?
100%, 100%. I mean, the best way to talk to and it's not the new black consumer, it's the consumer that's always been there. But the best way to talk to consumers is if the communications and the work that we put out there is diverse and authentic and honest in the way it reflects people's experiences, people's hopes and dreams. So if you're not starting out from a point where that diversity is actually at the heart of creating out these ideas, it isn't possible that you're going to come out on the other end with work that actually connects with the consumers that we're talking about.
So is it the fault of brands who are unable to make the leap, or is it simply the ad agencies themselves that don't understand, or a bit of both?
Well, yeah, I was about to whitewash that answer by saying I think everyone's responsible at each point in the process. Ultimately, a lot of the international, multinational brands, when they come into South Africa, we have to do adaptive work, and that genuinely is blackwashing concepts. It's taking an ad that really had, Caucasians in it and putting black people in it to make it look more black.
Often driven by the practicality and reality of budget.
It's just as simple as it is. I mean, for us to ideate an entirely new concept, that's where it comes from. But local brands that have a very specific connection with the consumer, especially the black consumer, they've often rooted in ideas and insights that are not necessarily that of the actual black consumers. And that's where blackwashing comes in. So we start off with the premise of insights, and a lot of that's built into research and data, and then driven by our strategists.
Joe, pick it up.
If I may add to that you refer to the question of, are ad agencies not doing the work correctly? I think that ad agencies have been on a journey, possibly not fast enough, but it shouldn't be limited to the work that the ad agencies must do, because at the end of the day, who are we speaking to and who are we, at the end of the day, serving? It's the brands and the marketers. So from this idea of diversity, it has to be diverse from the brand and the marketer side as well.
So I accept among all the criticism. Having said that, though, there have got to be brands in this country that are getting it right.
Certainly, there are brands that are getting it right, but at the same time, they're not making the right decisions necessarily. I'm going to get a little controversial here and say that when you need to make decisions that are fundamentally based on the needs of or connecting with the consumers, and in particular the black consumers that you're trying to reach, you're going to have to accept that some of your consumers are not going to feel connected with it. And that's, I guess, where...
Some of your consumers won't feel connected. In other words, white consumers.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you're targeting black African, then some of your Indian and coloured consumers might also feel a little bit left out.
Yeah.
So that's where Joey refers to the diversity. And if you can find a universal insight that covers all of the consumers and actually connects with purpose, then the brands actually start to have meaning and real connection with those consumers across the board.
Within a diverse society then, Joey, how do you find the universal insight? I mean, is it easy enough to do? Are agencies not looking hard enough? Or is it literally the holy grail of branding?
I think that brands also need to be clear on who they're talking to. And also not trying to please everyone. Brands need to be unapologetic for the people that they serve. While there may be some cases where there can be universal truths that actually spread across different people and so forth, there are some brands where maybe that's not the case, and we should be okay with that.
So, Thabang, how then do we seed conversation around diversity within agencies and brands? Where do you start?
Well, I think
Would you kick everyone out and get new people in? It's obviously not as easy as that.
The simple situation, and we've been experiencing it, is you can start with the numbers, and a lot of agencies in South Africa have only really done the work at the bottom. They introduce juniors, and that's a very frustrating experience. So for a lot of black people in the industry, they enter the industry, and there they are as juniors, but they're basically serving the needs of a white management team. And we've been challenged significantly from an FCB and even a Hello Computer perspective that, we want to be seeing our own people in the leadership position so that we also are understood as consumers and people who bring also homegrown insights and homegrown knowledge about the consumer that we're trying to reach.
There's also a belief, I think is your contention, both of you, that advertising has to contribute positively to South African society. I understand it, but can brands themselves really afford that kind of altruistic outlook that you're asking of them?
I think it's less about them affording it. They have to. We're in a space right now where, with technology, the amount of messages bombarding consumers every single day is getting to a point where how you cut through the clutter is really connecting with people on a very important level. It's really resonating with people with things that matter to them. And the things that matter to them are not only the things that they buy. It's the schools that they go to, it's the food that we eat, a point of view that you have on the economy or on the environment as well. So because consumers are more concerned about these things, as brands have to be concerned about these things as well. And it's how they run their businesses that becomes important, not just what they advertise, but what they do on a day-to-day basis. So that aspect of this is who we are is beyond what you say, it's also what you do.
Is it difficult then to convince brands to adopt that positive approach?
I don't think it's difficult to convince brands. I do think that dependent on the time, we're going through a recession, a lot of brands are under pressure, and the marketing department's obviously getting their budgets cut. So you almost don't have a choice. You have to find smarter ways of doing what we do on a daily basis. Convincing brands that they need a brand purpose, and then us connecting that brand purpose with the communication messaging and the message matrix is fundamental to what we do. It is also important that messaging is positive and reflects a version of our society that we aspire to, not the version of society that's tearing us apart and creates disunity. That's not what brand's purpose is.
You guys have got a very responsible job. I didn't realize that. Thanks very much for joining us.